Welcome to this episode of Careers Takeoff, where we learn the very latest about how people can get ahead in their careers. I'm your host, Conrad Chua. Today, we have a very special guest. Dr. Helena Kim has worked for the last 15 years with leaders from Amazon, Google, the US Air Force, and with many of our MBAs here at Cambridge. So, I'd like to welcome Helena.
Hey, hi, Conrad. Helena. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So, Helena, you coach and train people to do emotional intelligence and be braver in their work relationships. And you've got this new book out called Soft Skills for Hard People. Helena, can you start by telling us what are soft skills?
Well, soft skills are what it's called people skills, also emotional intelligence. So these terms are used interchangeably. And soft skills are really simply, there are four components to soft skills. It's the capacity for self-awareness, self-management, people awareness, and people management. In practical terms, what it is your capacity to observe and educate yourself on how and why your reaction and behaviors impact other people, and vice versa. So how other people's behaviors and reactions impact you. So we're looking at dynamics, so social dynamics.
Helena, most of the people who are watching this right now would be working in business or working in a business school. So can you tell us, why are these soft skills so important in businesses and organizations?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's say, if you knew that there's something that is strongly correlated to you being happier, wealthier, more successful, healthier, and this something is something that makes other people want to follow you as a leader. And this is something that's required for you to be able to influence and persuade and motivate and inspire other people. So you can make greater impact with people, for the people, and within the organization. And check this out, not just professionally, but in personal life, this something, it drives other people to want to date you and to keep you and to marry you. So, and we're finding that this something is something that makes people better partners and parents and leaders. So think about it. Wouldn't this something be important to you? And for people who are not—
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so people who are not convinced yet, for the practical people in the audience today, every business performance research tells us that soft skills or emotional intelligence gets you promoted and moves you up the leadership ladder. That means status, prestige, more money, and power. So honestly, wouldn't this be important to you?
Helena, I should have read your book when I started on the dating scene, but never mind. You talked about soft skills, but your book's title is Soft Skills for Hard People. So who are hard people?
That's easy. Hard people I describe as the rational, the practical, the no-nonsense or pragmatic people, and also busy leaders. And so when I talk about hard people, so people who think and feel from the neck up. So I know that's a strange description, but there are a lot of people, especially when you're busy, we're driven to be more cognitive, and people tend to feel or think from the neck up. So I describe this group of people as hard people. And there are a lot of us actually who are this way. So I think for the coaching, when I'm coaching people with leadership and also with emotional intelligence, what they're looking for is a cross trainer, being able to lead, being able to coach, and also both of these require emotional intelligence.
Helena, I really love your book, and I wrote on Amazon reviews that I really liked how you use real life scenarios and dialogue, I think from your own professional experience, to illustrate your points. So I thought we could look at a clip of what you call conversation killers. And I got two of my team members to act out one of those dialogues. But before we show that clip, Helena, what is a conversation killer?
Conversation killers, and I have 3 of them in my book. And conversation killers are what I call narcissistic traps, really. So, and we know people like this. When a leader steals other people's thunder or limelight, or someone, or it doesn't have to be a leader, it could be anybody who basically hijacks the conversation to be about themselves. So somehow they, you bring up a topic and the person basically hijacks it to be about them. And honestly, no one likes or enjoys a leader who is a conversation thief. And so that's one example of a conversation killers. I see this with some of the leaders when in social gatherings or at the water cooler or at the canteen. Because they're a leader, they basically want to hold court everywhere they go. In the boardroom, I could understand, but in social settings also, at a Friday wine and cheese events, they still think that they need to be holding court, where they don't realize that they need to share that thunder, they need to share that limelight. And what they also don't realize is that when they are hijacking conversations away from other people, it actually demotivates them to speak up or to share. And I think another example of is when people tend to give unsolicited advice. And I think the clip that you're talking about is a demonstration of that, isn't it? So should we take a look at that?
Okay, great. So before we play the clip, just some context for this, for what you're going to be watching. So I've got 2 of my colleagues. Helen has a piece of good news to share, and she's going to be telling that to Sophie. So let's see what happens.
Congrats, I heard you got a bump up in your take home.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they had the budget for it. And when I asked, I got a bit crazy and I asked for 15%. And I got it.
Well, that shows you should have asked for more. You should have started higher.
All right, that's a scheme that can play out anywhere, right? In any sort of team. But Helena, what was happening here?
Well, this is a good example of both a hijacking and giving unsolicited advice. So when Helen was really excited about giving her news about getting her raise, and this is an actual conversation, mind you. It's from this is from a budget cut that I had at the company, and so out of nowhere, as she's really excited about giving this news. So remind me the name of the second person.
Sophie.
Sophie. And Sophie basically says, congrats. But you know what? What did she do? She jumped in and she wanted to basically give advice about how Helen could have done this differently. So imagine Helen will feel pretty disheartened because she's very excited, but Sophie comes in and basically hijacks the excitement and hijacks the conversation by Sophie wanting to be the advisor, basically giving advice that Helen didn't even ask for. This is also an example of timely advice. There's time and place for when you can give advice, and giving advice after something has been done already is not the time to give somebody advice, and also I see this when people come out of job interviews and then they're talking about their interview, and the person who's listening to the interview basically gives the person who is nervous and really stressed out what they could have done differently. So when you're giving advice, think about, is this the right time for me to be giving this advice? And second, more importantly, is how does my advice add value to this person? Oh, never mind. Third one is, more importantly, is did this person ask me for advice? Because unsolicited advice is like walking into someone's house uninvited. and telling them how to redecorate their living room. So think about, because we are all intelligent people. Well, some of us are anyway, but some people assume that it's okay to impose their intelligence onto other people. So make sure that you're not assuming and make sure you're not imposing. So first thing you do is basically you got to ask before you give advice. And like as you would knock on people's door before you enter, and you have to be invited to come in. So I hope that's clear.
Yeah, Helena, that's great stuff. Now, you also wrote in the book about teams and how teams storm and norm, but the events over the last couple of months with COVID have really dispersed teams all over the place. They don't come into the office anymore. People are working from home. Some people are in the office, etc. So, with all these new working environment, do we have to approach team building in a different way?
Absolutely. I think the team building the culture has changed, and also the leadership also has changed. And that's one of the reasons the book is quite condensed, and it's short and it's basically digestible, because people have the concentration has the time lag that's changed. What we're also experiencing is that there's a blurring of blended time and blended space. People are working in environments where you're actually eating and you eat at the dining table, but when things are cleared, you end up working on that dining table. So it's really important for people to figure out, first of all, how are they taking care of themselves? So before the team building happens, you have to figure out individually, how are you taking care of yourself? So you are sure you're clear about your boundaries, about how you're working, how are you sleeping, how you're organizing your workspace and your work time. And I think there's been a lot of, because of the distance and the inability to engage with people are more distracted from the work and not being able to integrate the work and play and family time. What I also find is that the distraction comes from, for a lot of people, is that they're staring at themselves on these video screens, and that they get really distracted by that, and they're not really paying attention. And and we laugh, but it is something that's become a problem. So some people, if you are self-conscious, it's a lot better for you not to cover the area or figure out a way not to see yourself on the video. And also with the leaders, I think it's really important to be more creative about team building, or also checking in with people. We're finding that people are chained to the computer, but we have no choice at this time. That also means that you need, as a leader, being creative, also with the help of other people, being far more innovative about meetings. And one of the suggestions that we have is part of the people where they feel really, there's that fatigue, isn't there? The Zoom fatigue and the meeting fatigue is one of the suggestions, and one of the things that really work well is if you keep the meetings shorter than usual. So making sure that the meetings are shorter and people come in for they become energized, and it's also organized, and also make it clear that they know what the meeting is about. The meeting can be for people to come together as idea generating meeting. Is this a brainstorming meeting, or is this a meeting that you're going to make a decision? So if you start to combine those together, it becomes, the meeting gets too long. So a lot of the teams are more functioning now when they have spurts of meetings. And that seems to help to people to come, because you know what? It's a lot more attractive. It's a lot more conducive for you to come to a meeting that's going to be 15 minutes or 30 minutes long, instead of not thinking that, because usually meetings are about an hour long, isn't it? And the hour gets longer and longer and longer, it feels like, when you're sitting in front of the computer. So it is very important for the team leaders to realize what the team need from these meetings. What I'm also finding out from some of the companies is that they become more, it's become more personal. Because like today, you're in my office, you're in my consulting corner. It is quite personal. You get to see other people's dining rooms, you get to see other people's living rooms, you get to see their pets go by. So in some ways, you are invited to everyone's room, their dining room or their office. So it has become more personal. So figure out what that means for you individually, And also, what does that mean for you to figure out what you want to do with the background and what have you? But it has become more personal in that way. So people are connecting in a different level. So honestly, yeah, Conrad, you're there, but actually, you're actually in my office, which is lovely actually to have you here. And we're also finding that part of the team building is that people are using creative ways to connect. So they are having their Zoom lunches together, some of them, but sometimes they need a break. So they'll go away and then they'll come back. Another thing that I've seen with some of the companies that I'm working with is that they have created lunch and learn sessions that are about 15 minutes long. So where they share, or 20 minutes long. So they have TED Talks that they share, things that they really enjoy, like podcasts that they can share with each other. And in particular, in my husband's team in particular, they have someone who's a Zumba expert. So she comes in during lunchtime to do exercise for the entire team, whoever wants to join. So again, there's a lot of sharing that's going on. I know it's been stressful. I know it's been difficult, but these are things that I'm really encouraged that people are doing differently. During this time. I was just asked a couple of days ago by the London Stock Exchange to come in for 15 minutes to talk about how to boost confidence for their leaders. And it was during that lunchtime. And got in there, it's a short chat, and got out. And then they got something different, didn't they? Than having a separate lunch. Again, it was not a 1 hour lunch session. They asked me to come in for 15 minutes. And what's the other? They create happy hours on Fridays, or quiz nights, or game nights, and trivia nights. And I had one of the startup companies that I work with. What they created was, they're starting up. They said, okay, let's have a business naming contest. So something to generate. Or they have scavenger hunts within the office. So again, I'm finding that yes, it's been difficult, but you know what? People rose to the occasion and became really creative and found ways in short spurts to bring people together. So I don't know if that covers what you were asking.
Definitely. Yeah, I wanted to ask a bit more about COVID, but before I do that, to the people who are watching, whether on Facebook or LinkedIn, please, if you've got any questions for Helena, please pop them in the chats, and then we'll address them at the end. Thanks to Brandon on Facebook for his comment, and Azra on LinkedIn. And we'll go. Those are more comments rather than questions per se. But if you got comments or questions, just pop them in the chat, and then we'll look at them at the end. Helena, you talk about this situation that the whole world is finding ourselves in, right, with COVID, and there's a lot of this uncertainty, and as you said, suddenly the office is in people's dining rooms, living rooms, etc. And people who used to be, who are still work colleagues, are now transported into everybody's personal lives, so to speak. And there are people who, unfortunately, are going through very stressful situations. And your advice in the book for leaders is quite interesting. Some of these people, their stress in their own personal lives is obviously going to be spilling over into the work environment, which everything is the same. But your advice to leaders is, to have clear emotional boundaries and to practice that right level or degree of empathy. What do you mean by that?
Well, as I described the emotional intelligence or soft skills, one of the first things is about being self-awareness, having self-awareness. And part of the self-awareness, I think people think, is that, it's really about knowing yourself, how you respond to other people, what do you like, what you don't like, and knowing your emotions or managing your emotions and what have you. Yes, that's it. But realize that the purpose of self-awareness, one of the main purpose of self-awareness, is to make sure to know where you end and where the other person begins. So during this time, everyone has their stress and everyone has the what's going on, and making sure that as a leader, the responsibility is that you have your stuff going on, and your job is, when you're there across the screen or talking to the people that you're leading, is to leave your issues outside the door. Because sometimes emotionally, if you are not able to have the clean boundaries or compartmentalize, you are going to have that blurred boundaries where you're going to try to meet your social or your emotional or your professional needs through the people that's in front of you. And that becomes dangerous. And so that's where we talk about the blurring of the boundaries. And also, there are a lot of people who are living on their own, or the leaders who are on their own. They are trying to meet their social needs through the people at work. My advice to them is, you know what? Yeah, you will meet some of your social needs through the people that you meet and have other meetings and what have you. But those social needs, they need to be met with people outside of work as a leader, because you need to keep that really clear. So there's as a leader, that you have that responsibility that your job is to be there be present for the people and their needs, and not to be sitting there and try to meet your needs. And so when I train people about emotional intelligence, is the main purpose of self-awareness is to make sure that you keep the boundaries clean. And we talk about empathy. And people, I think people misunderstand empathy as, that feeling what you feel. I feel exactly what you feel. For leaders in a profession, that becomes dangerous. So this is why the book is really a rational take on emotional intelligence, is that make sure that you understand that walking in someone else's shoes can be very unhygienic, literally and emotionally. So you cannot assume that what the other people in your team, what they're feeling and experiencing is something that you know, because you've been there, and you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and assume that you know what they're talking about. As soon as you assume, you've lost the battle of understanding somebody, because as soon as you assume, you stop understanding, because you're in your own narrative. You're no longer listening to the other person. And also, I think for people with the whole concept of empathy is I use the whole with the walking in someone else's shoes as it's quite dangerous, because that is less empathy. It's more projection. So,
Okay. What do you mean by projection?
It's when the assumption is that what I feel must be what you must be feeling. Yeah, since
Okay.
I've been there, you must be experiencing the same thing. So meaning, you know what, I was a teenager. And parents get into this all the time. When I was your age, or when I got promoted, or when I got divorced, or when I got married. So assuming that what I feel and what I experience is end and be all, so other people could be or should be. And that you think that you understand other people because you experienced it yourself. You can only understand. Empathy is when you understand them the way they experienced it, not the way you experienced it, not the way you want them to experience it. The whole concept, I know what's best for you. Very dangerous statement. I know what's best for you.
These are the sort of things that I have to watch myself when I talk to my 8-year-old daughter. But
yes,
anyway,
Conrad, going back to your 8-year-old, she probably knows more than you do about some things.
I think so. I think so. So we've got a couple more minutes, Helena, and there's quite a few comments, so I'm going to just show them. So first of all, Brandon on Facebook says, if you want to be interesting, you have to be interested in others. So
yes.
I think that's really useful advice.
Yeah.
And then there's some good advice about, or comments about the meeting side. So Azra on LinkedIn, have an end time for the meeting too, so everyone knows when it's going to finish.
Yes, so this is where the timing is really, really important. Say we have 15 minutes. And as a leader, you have to, you have to be really specific. We have 15 minutes. And then be the timekeeper. We only have 2 minutes left. Being able to say, yeah, we need to end now. So it's really about prelude and introduction, inducting people into that short meeting. Thank you, Azra. That's lovely.
The next comment is also about meetings. It's from Margaret Chua on LinkedIn. Leaders need to find out what the team members want to get out of the meeting. I think she asked, should this discovery be before the meeting?
Yes, you know what? This is also in particular, very important for people who are introverted, where people they like to think things first before they actually come to the meeting. And you could have this available for everybody to think about. You know, what would you like to leave from this meeting? What do you need from this meeting? But again, you need to know what the meeting, as a leader, you need to know, this is a discovery meeting. Is this a brain thinking brain dumping? Yeah, because that's what you do, isn't it? This is a place where everyone comes in with all their ideas and you dump and you work together, or is this going to be a decision making? So you need to, I think it's a great idea especially for introverts, to let them know ahead of time, this is what we're thinking about doing. Do you have any ideas? What do you need from this meeting?
Yeah, and I think especially with this sort of collaboration software that companies are using now, for example, like Teams, where it's not just a video conferencing meeting tool, but people can put in stuff in the chat before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. I think that really helps.
Yes.
So I think we've got Kim, who was just very usefully recapped things that you said about soft skills. We've got Susanna from on LinkedIn. Saying, Helena, what you've shared is so relevant for this year's working situation. And leaders need to be even more honed in to their team's needs.
Yeah,
so,
and the statement for me, the general rule for leadership is, you know what, leadership is not about you. It's about the other people. It's about your team. And leadership is not your need to be a great leader. It's about the other people.
And then we've got a comment from Ganeet, who's at MBA, who just finished his MBA.
Yay, Ganeet!
Congrats. He's quoting something that we say a lot. Keith Goodall teaches on the Cambridge MBA. He says this a lot to our students. My world is not your world. So I think this is what we're saying, Helena, about don't assume, right?
So in my book, I use you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Okay, I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
Now you've etched it into my mind.
Hey, Matt.
Here's another. Yeah, so Matt also finished his MBA recently, and he's saying, great insights, thank you for sharing your wisdom. So thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
And we've got a comment from Daisy. So learn something new about empathy. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Daisy.
All right. So Helena, you've got your book out, Soft Skills for Hard People. I think you've got a physical copy with you right there.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it looks something like this.
Yes. And the small print says, a practical guide to emotional intelligence for rational leaders. So Helena, where can people find your book?
Well, this is out on Amazon. It's on Goodreads for people who don't support Amazon. It's also available for Americans on Barnes & Noble. It's actually on some of the other bookshops like Waterstone and W.H. Smith. And I think one of the things I'm really proud about this book, which was a big surprise, it did pretty well on the ranks. It climbed to #1 in 3 different business categories, and that was a really lovely surprise. But the best part about this for me is in the scheme of the big book ranking. The book actually beat Tony Robbins and Arianna Huffington.
Yeah, Helena, when you said Arianna Huffington, I thought you were going to say beat Ariana Grande, but I think your first step. You're almost going to go there. So I just put the URL down here. Everybody, you can find out more about Helena Kim at that URL. There were a few more comments. So people like Rezvan says, thanks, Helena. Great insights. Look forward to reading the book.
Right.
Bucky says, again, thanks very much. Thanks very much for that. Maria, another MBA student. So thanks very much for for joining us.
Oh, Maria.
And Deepak,
Yes.
he's putting on his running shoes. He's going off to work.
Thanks, Deepak.
So thank you very much. That's all the time we have for today. And you've been such a great audience. Dr. Helena Kim, he's been such a great speaker as well. Thank you so much. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Same thing, LinkedIn and Facebook, when we will have Richard Newman, who's the founder and CEO of BodyTalk. And he'll be telling us how you can amplify your virtual presence. So thanks very much. Goodbye. Have a good weekend.
All right. I'll
Bye,
see you
everybody.
there. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.